I've decided to make this video after having to put my mate's exhaust back onto his Rally Mini when it fell off halfway up Gerston Hill climb. Afterwards, I was explaining to him that stuff like this is always going to happen in motorsport, but the trick is to make sure that it never happens again. And this is why race and rally cars are never actually done. They're always evolving. So here's the evolution of the exhaust on our Rally Mini. Welcome to the Gentleman's Motor Racing Team, where we are competing in motorsport as a fun experience, and we're probably unique as most of our sponsorship is through crowdfunding from lovely people like you. Your support, as always, is hugely appreciated. Thank you very much. When I originally built the car, it started with a mishmash using a Maniflow LCB, a single box side exit Sportex rally system from Minisport. First question is, Kev, why side exit? Tow bar, OVs. Everyone recommends the Maniflow LCB, so that's a given. The rear exhaust system, why did I not go for Maniflow all the way through? Well, the simple answer is cash, isn't it? I went for the Sportex rally exhaust system because I've got that on our Mark 1 Mini, and it's been absolutely brilliant. I love the sound. I like the fact it's understated, it's just black, you know, nothing fancy on it, and it's obviously got the skids on it for rallying. The downside is what I realised afterwards is the Maniflow LCB and the Sportex exhaust is exactly the same diameter, so they wouldn't slip into each other. So I had to buy a slip joint to go over both of them, and it clamps on each end. To be honest, this worked fine to start with. Right from our first ever event, I haven't got a sticker, I had a sticker. Right from our first ever event at Castle Combe, we live in fear of not passing sound check when we go rallying. Stage rallying limit is 100 decibels and we're often borderline. When you get to a rally, it's often very rushed. You unload the car, you've got to go to scrutineering, then you've got to go to sound check, and that then gives you just enough time to get ready to start the rally. The problem is, if we don't warm the engine up properly, and when the sound check person says, can you just hold the engine at 4,500 RPM, the poor little engine is like popping and banging and doing all sorts of things. And as I say, almost every event, borderline, we pass. Just to mitigate this, I made an insert to go into the back of the rear exhaust tip, and it was just basically, I found a bit of exhaust pipe that was smaller than the diameter that would go in, and it had like a little screw clamp on the side, and inside that bit of exhaust I had all sorts of baffles and things in the hope that that would then reduce the noise. Haven't had to use it to this point, but I kept it in our service van just in case. So although this is a Mark II, and I know technically it should have a remote gear shifter in it and gearbox, we don't. We have a rod change gearbox. Why is that an issue? It's not really, but when the exhaust comes down and goes through the tunnel, what it did was it would be really, really close to the rod change shifter thing. And so it would bang and vibrate and stuff like that. How I got around that is I actually modified the bracket that holds the rod change and sort of like swung it over to one side, but it's still really, really close. Again, another modification we had to do. For our first gravel rally, I knew the bottom of the car was going to get abused. So I made some trick aluminium floor protection. This was to supplement the steel front sump guard that incorporated a big long extra section that would go and protect the shifter and all that sort of stuff. Our first ever gravel rally was here on the Isle of Wight back in whenever, but this gravel rally was brutal on our little Mini. And at halfway through the day, our back box caught on a rut, and it pulled the system backwards, and the centre pipe pulled out of that slip joint. When we got back to service area, we jacked it all up. Everyone dived underneath and tried as hard as we could to put that the exhaust back into the slip joint. That was easier said than done. Obviously, the underfloor protection was in the way, but also there was no way for us to be able to push it back in. You know, some of us were behind pushing on the back box. We kind of managed to bodge it in time. We put all the protection back in, went out and did the next stage. Halfway through that stage, the exhaust came off. Never mind, came back in, jacked it up, tried to bodge it the best we could, and then we went back out on the next stage. Again, the exhaust fell off. We limped back into service, but this time we didn't have enough time to actually do a repair, and there was only one more stage to go. So we just went, you know, it'll be fine. So very, very quietly, gently, we drove to stage arrival, hoping the marshals weren't going to go, hang on, something's not quite right here. And basically when they went go, we floored it, did the stage, finished the event. It was absolutely brilliant. But of course, this really highlighted that we need to upgrade the system. In an attempt to make it slightly more quieter, I bought the proper Sportex Rally Centre exhaust box, and I also fabricated the exhaust so that it actually went round the gear shifter, missing it all together. I added some bigger, stronger skid pans to the boxes and even skimmed the roll lips on the edge of the box because that was a potential thing that it could get caught on. The struggles we had trying to get the exhaust onto the slip was basically there was no way for us to sort of push it or hit it in. One of the tricks that somebody told me was to weld a little tiny block of metal to the bottom of the Y piece that goes onto the LCB. That way you can use a hammer to tap it on or tap it off. And that has basically revolutionized, you know, maintenance for the Mini, and I'm really glad I did it. However, I've removed that slip joint entirely and welded the Y piece to the exhaust system, removing that weak link entirely. During our last rally at Goodwood, the nuts on the exhaust mount fell off and we dragged the tailpipe of our exhaust all the way around Goodwood. Fitting it back on would have been super easy, except I failed to include some UNF nuts that the mounts needed in our spares package. Obviously my spares package includes UNF and UNC bolts as well, but I've also got a very comprehensive exhaust repair box with all sorts of bits of pipe, clamps and adapters and things like that, not just for us, but you know, that maybe we can lend to fellow rallyists as well. The lads in service did a really good job of repairing the exhaust so we could finish the rally. However, I've upgraded those exhaust mounts to the ones sold by Mini Spares that are reinforced. They're much stronger, so rather than having the bolts sort of dangling on the bit of rubber, it actually goes all the way through. Hopefully that's a really good upgrade. However, even with that additional box in the middle of the system, we still struggled with the sound test at Goodwood. And someone told me an old trick about fitting a downpipe on the exhaust tip. The reason this is supposed to work is when the noise comes out of the exhaust, it's directed towards the floor, and then by the time it bounces back up off the floor, that sound has kind of been dispersed and a lot less sound then hits the tester's microphone. As the rolled exhaust tip on the Sportex box was now worn down from being dragged around Goodwood, I thought I might as well give it a go. I couldn't find the right diameter and the right looking downpipe to fit onto the system. So in the end, I actually bought a 180 bend and made a pie cut exactly where I wanted it, sliced it, welded it on, job's a good one. Has it made a difference? Well, I don't know, we'll find out at the next rally. I know what you're asking, what is the next rally, Kev? Well, with your help, we're hoping that we can enter the Jersey Rally in 2025 in our 1969 Mark II Classic Mini. To help raise funds for this event, we have some amazing companies and people who have donated prizes so that we can run a fundraising raffle. Arson Fire, based in the gorgeous Adgeston Vineyard here on the Isle of Wight, have donated a selection of their spicy chili products, and it's bound to blow your socks off. Solent Marine Services know all about the importance of looking after race engines, in particular marine engines, and they're kind enough to sponsor the oil that we use in our little Mini. They've been kind enough to donate 5 litres of Valvoline VR1 2050 oil. Its high zinc content is just what every classic Mini needs. Lee Morey of Mac Tools Isle of Wight, he's kindly donated a tool bag full of quality tools and merch that any tech or mechanic would love to get their hands on. And our service area clock is sponsored by Robinson's Jewelers, and they kindly donated this amazing Rolex wall clock to the raffle. How amazing would this look in your service area or workshop? Obviously, we're going to include some Gentleman's Motor Racing Team merch into the raffle, and our final prize was kindly donated by one of our very kind supporters, fellow competitor Peter Gennari, who's donated a bottle of JC LaRue. It's a lovely South African sparkling wine. Tickets are £10 each, and there will be only one winner, and that winner will win all the prizes. Yes. So please, if you can spare a tenner or two, enter the raffle now. You could win all of these amazing prizes and get us to Jersey in the process. Good luck. I'm always up for learning something new. So if you have any tips and advice for making a really good exhaust system, please let me know in the comments below. Right, if you've made it this far, thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. If you'd like to help support our little team, how about becoming a patron or a YouTube member? For those kind people, I make a video every week known as the Midweek Update video, and I'm going to start recording it now. Welcome to another Midweek Update. These videos are for teammates, patrons and sponsors and YouTube members. Your support, as always, is hugely appreciated. Thank you very much. Whew. When am I recording this? Bang on 9 o'clock Sunday evening. On target. I almost didn't come out. I was like, Sunday evening, bit tired. I'll do it in the morning. No, Kev, get out there. Make these videos for your supporters. Right, what have I been up to this week? As usual, I often think that I haven't done much this week, but I have. So let's crack on with Dad's Binny Cooper S. Not only did I promise Catherine that I would work on the Mini sooner rather than later, I was inspired by my friends Andy and Jakey, who basically did an engine swap on a Subaru Impreza because their engine kind of blew up at a car club event, and they managed to take it out and put a new one in within 5 hours.